The night air in Southampton was eerily still, as if the very stars held their breath. Beneath a sickle moon, the great white hull of the RMS Titanic loomed tall and silent on the dark water, its polished, brass fittings glinting like watchful eyes. A hush had fallen over the crowd that had gathered to witness the unsinkable vessel's departure. Whispers drifted on the wind, rumors of a handwritten warning slipped into the ship's mail, of a pale woman seen drifting by the starboard railing, and of an unseen presence that trailed the gate inside the first-class grand staircase. Lady Evelyn Harcourt tightened her fur-trimmed cloak around her trembling shoulders. She had watched the phantom figure, a slender woman in a rose-tinted gown, her face veiled and gaunt, her eyes hollow as drowned wells. Lady Evelyn had felt that ghostly handbrush, her own urging her back, though no one stood beside her. Searching the dim lantern glow, she found only polished oak and gleaming bronze, as though the apparition had never been there. At exactly 7 o'clock, a single black raven descended, perching on the railing above the promenade deck. Its coal-black eyes stared unblinking at the passengers below. A collective shudder rippled through the onlookers, a superstitious tremor they could not explain. The raven let out a harsh croak, echoed by the distant whistle of the engine's awakening deep within the ship's belly. Captain Edward J. Smith emerged from the bridge, his crisp uniform immaculate, his face pinched with the weight of leadership. He gave a curt nod to his officers, then strode toward the gate. As he passed the first-class entrance, Lady Evelyn caught his eye, and in that moment, she saw something flicker across his gaze. As if he too recognized the dread clinging to the ship's lacquered walls. The gangway was the raven lifted off, its wings stirring a cold breeze that raced down the length of the deck as Titanic cast off. The crowd on shore erupted into cheers, but aboard the ship, a low rumbling murmur spread. Did you hear it? Something scraped against the hull just now. There's a face at the porthole. The voices blended into a chorus of unease. Below, a young steward named Owen McBride hurried along the dim corridor of Diadeck, lamp in hand. He had received the mysterious letter sealed with wax bearing no insignia just hours before. Its cryptic message ran, "Ignore the warnings at your peril. The sea never forgets. Those who challenge her will join the drowned." Owen's breath caught as he approached a row of closed stateroom doors. From one of them came the faint sound of breathing, to deliver attend the slow, dragging footsteps of someone pacing on the other side. He knocked softly. "Steward Owen, is everything?" No answer. He tried the handle. The door resisted. Swallowing, he slipped a key from his pocket, turned it, and the door creaked open on rust-dead hinges. Inside, the room was empty save for the lamp's flickering light playing across a narrow bed, its mattress stained. On the pillow lay a single white glove, damp as if someone had been wearing it moments before. Owen's pulse thundered. He backed out, sealing the door and straightening the glove on the desk, a silent promise that the unknown visitor would find it waiting. On the top deck, the band played Alexander's ragtime band, the jaunty notes drifting over the water like a lifeline thrown to a sinking soul. Yet, those who listened closely heard something else, a mournful undertone, a distant viol crying plaintively in a minor key. No instrument was set up for viol. No musician claimed to play one, but the sound wove between the brass and strings, tugging at hearts with melancholy that had no name. In the first-class smoking room, industrialist Henry Aldridge raised his glass to a companion. To progress, he toasted, voice booming, "May human ingenuity conquer the sea itself." His companion, Lady Anne Sinclair, lowered her eyes. She had stood at the rail minutes earlier, and seen the ghostly figure again this time, peering back at her from the black water below, lips moving in a silent plea. "Help me." Henry's laughter faded as the temperature in the room plummeted. Candles guttered, and the smoke in his cigar coalesced into a misty shape. A trembling hand, knuckles gnarled like driftwood, reaching out. He flung the cigar aside, the ember rolling across the carpet and leaving a scorched handprint in its wake. By midnight, every watch on board had stopped. The great clock in the grand staircase remained frozen at 11:59 p.m. Emma's celestial hiccup caught between one day and the next. In the crew quarters, murmurs spread. Some blamed fatigue, others blamed superstition. But in every whispered retelling, a refrain held true. Something moves within the steel ribs of this ship. Something hungry. As the Titanic cut through the ink-black Atlantic, its forward lights illuminated only fog and rolling waves. The Raven's shadow, a silhouette, had vanished. Yet the sense of being observed clung to the decks like salt spray. Beneath the polished decks and sumptuous cabins lurked a chill greater than any winter gala, reminder that no human craft could truly master the ocean's ancient heart. Beneath the lavish opulence of the promenade decks and glittering social halls, the engine rooms throbbed with relentless power. Steam hissed from scarlet pipes. Pistons clanged like giant iron jaws. In every few seconds, a deep, resonant boom shook the metal framing. Here, in the bowels of the Titanic, Chief Engineer Joseph Bell oversaw a symphony of mechanical might. As the hours crept past midnight, Bell noticed a disturbance on his gauge as a sudden drop in boiler pressure in boiler room. No, 6. He barked orders to his firemen. Stoke those fires. Increase speed to furnace 4. Yet, no response came. Lantern light revealed the stokers frozen in place. Coal baskets slick with perspiration. Their faces ashen and eyes wide with terror. Bell caught sight of a shape drifting in the steam. A man in a soot-blackened uniform, but his features were obscured by shadows. The figure raised a hand, pointing toward the massive turbines with a bony finger. Bell, shaken but resolute, followed its gesture, only to discover that one of the safety valves had been deliberately jammed, an impossible act in the midst of full steam. Gritting his teeth, he freed the valve, and the hiss of escaping steam roared like an enraged beast. Moments later, the turbines ground to a stop, plunging the engine room into dim, flickering darkness. The emergency lamps sputtered, and in their weak glow, Bell saw impressions in the coal piled by the furnace footsteps leading nowhere, then vanishing into the coal bed. He knelt, brushing away loose pieces to reveal a single blackened glove, the twin of the white glove found on Dia. He picked it up, his gut twisting with dread as he realized it was still warm. Up on C-deck, third-class passengers huddled in narrow corridors, wrapped in threadbare blankets. In cabin C-81, a family of 7 slept fitfully. The youngest child, little Samuel, awoke crying, fingers fumbling under his pillow. His mother found him clutching a tarnished locket, not hers, and inside its glass window was a sepia photograph of a gaunt woman, whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. Samuel whimpered, "She's calling me to the water." A sudden shudder coursed through the ship, as though a giant hand had squeezed its hull. From deep within the steel, ribs came a low, keening Monan unearthly lament that rattled the port. Passengers poured into the passageways, faces pale, voices trembling. The Titanic's orchestra, playing doggedly in the Parisian, faltered mid-note. The violinist's bow stilled over the strings, and he stared wide-eyed at his own reflection in the mirror behind him. There, standing behind his chair, was the phantom woman in the rose-tinted gown, her veil pushed back to reveal hollow cheeks and cracked lips that moved soundlessly. "Don't trust them," she mouthed. "They'll drown you all." She faded as the lights flickered again, but her warning echoed in every mind aboard. On A-deck, the wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, hurried to send ice warnings to nearby ships. Their fingers flew over the keys, yet each message they received in reply was garbled, full of static. "Turn back. It's a trap. The sea demands its due." Confounded, they looked up to find their compass spinning wildly, the needle pointing north one moment, south the next, as if torn by conflicting currents of fate. In the first-class dining saloon, where crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows on polished mahogany, guests sat frozen mid-bite. A pianist's fingers hovered above the keys, and a single crystal wineglass slid off a table, unaided, shattering against the deck. The shards glowed crimson in the chandelier light, as though stained by blood. The assembled diners gasped, and among them, Lady Evelyn clutched her pearls so tightly they cut into her skin. Outside, the ocean was dead calm. No wind stirred the glassy surface. And yet, from beyond the bow, a solitary ripple formed, traveling toward the ship. It grew into a perfect circle, then concentric rings, each lap of water whispering like 1,000 voices. "We are waiting." Captain Smith, on the bridge, stared out into the enveloping darkness. The lookout's binoculars lay forgotten in his hand. For the first time in his storied career, he felt a cold dread coil in his chest. Turning to his officers, he whispered, "Stand by for collision." But it was not an iceberg they would meet. It was something far older, far more vengeful, lurking beneath the silent waves. A sudden flash of white loomed dead ahead, an impossible shape rising from the ink-black sea. On the bridge, the lookout's cry rang out. "Iceberg right ahead." Captain Smith lunged for the wheel, but time had already betrayed them. A deafening roar shredded the night as steel sheared against ancient ice, sending shrapnel of metal and paint cascading across the deck like splintering bones. The impact reverberated through every beam and bulkhead. Passengers were thrown from staterooms, porcelains shattered, and lamps toppled in a cascade of sparks that ignited ribbons of steam. A porthole in the first-class veranda exploded inward, showering Lady Anne Sinclair with frigid spray. She staggered back, her heart pounding to the rhythm of tearing plates and collapsing. Below, boiler room. No. 6 was engulfed in chaos. The emergency siren wailed as scalding steam hissed through ruptured pipes. "Chief Engineer," Bell shouted over the cacophony, rallying his men. "To the watertight, doors sealed them now." But as they slammed the heavy iron hatches, a low female voice drifted through the steam, a plaintive whisper, unmistakably human. "It's too late." In the grand staircase, the great clock tried to chime, but its gears ground in protest, each bell tone drawn out into an agonized groan. Beneath that sound, a chorus of sobs and murmurs rose from the decks, mingling with the brittle cracking of fissures spreading along the hull. Then, as if summoned by the sea itself, the orchestra burst into nearer, "My God," to the air somber hymn floating through the chaos. a final requiem for the doomed. On sea deck, Samuel clung to his locket. The photograph's woman now pressed against the glass as though she had materialized from the water. Her hollow eyes met his, mouth opening in a soundless scream. Samuel froze, his small body chilled by dread. Behind him, his mother's desperate call was swallowed by the roar of cracking steel. Above, lifeboats swung free, men and women scrambling into them with frantic desperation. Some boats lowered half full, others were shoved away empty, victims of fear and indecision. A flash of movement on the deck caught everyone's eye. The rose-gowned phantom stood at the rail, arms outstretched toward the lifeboats. Her lips parted, and at last they spoke. "Do not forsake your souls," she cried. "They are all that will save you." Then she was gone, swallowed by the collapsing promenade. A great shudder tore the ship as the bow began its inexorable descent. Captain Smith turned from the rail, face ashen, tears staining his uniform. "All aboard," he ordered. His voice was hollow. From the water's depths, hundreds of mournful voices rose in a single keening lament, calling the living to join them forever. The men who had clung to the wreckage of the promenade fought to keep their footing as the ship's stern lifted high into the night air. Groaning under the sudden strain, one by one, the lifeboats were pulled away, their occupants fighting with the elements to keep themselves and their charges upright in the raging sea. But the sea was a hungry, merciless beast that night, and it claimed all in its path. With a final ear-splitting crack, the lifeboat carrying the captain and 5 others was wrenched from the davits and plunged into the mail. The men struggled to free themselves from their harnesses, their faces pale in the dim lantern light, their eyes wide with terror. "Go!" screamed the captain over the wind and waves. "Go, while you may." He watched as one by one, the lifeboats were claimed by the hungry sea, their occupants vanishing beneath the churning waters, their cries for help quickly snatched away by the wind. He was not a young man, nor yet old, but the years had etched lines upon his face and weariness into his bones. His hands, once strong and sure, now trembled with age and the burden of command. In the years he had been at sea, he had seen the best and worst of humanity, the boundless generosity of the ocean, and the destructive fury it could unleash. And now he realized with a sinking heart that neither he nor any of them had any hope of survival. As the frigid Atlantic slammed against him, he knew that death was swift and merciful. Better to die in the cold embrace of the ocean than to live with the memories that burned like hot coals within his soul. The screams of the passengers echoed in his ears, their cries of anguish and despair, a haunting requiem to the dying ship. Hours ago, when the lifeboats were lowered into the tumultuous sea, a miracle had occurred. A ship, the captain of which had seen the flares and rockets illuminating the night sky, had altered course just enough to see the signal. Not enough, alas, to rescue anyone, but enough to bring the captain and 3 others off the stricken vessel. As dawn broke over the horizon, Captain Smith stood at the rail of the lifeboat that had saved him, watching as the sun rose over the cold, gray sea. In the distance, he saw the faint outline of the Titanic, a grim reminder of the fate that awaited so many. He shuddered, pulling his oilskins more tightly around him against the biting wind. It was a scene that would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. Of those who had survived the sinking of the Titanic, there were many who blamed themselves for the loss of so many lives. Some blamed the lookout for not spotting the iceberg sooner. Others blamed the captain for driving the ship too fast in an area known for icebergs. Still, others blamed the lack of lifeboats, for had there been more people might have been saved. But these were not the thoughts that troubled Captain Smith. He had done everything right, he told himself, following every rule and regulation to ensure the safety of his passengers and crew. He had been a witness to the incredible bravery of the men who had stayed on board the Titanic, offering their support and assistance to the passengers until the very end. He thought of the band, playing their instruments to calm the frightened passengers, and the crew, helping the women and children into the lifeboats. He thought of the passengers, some who had lost their lives and others who had survived, clinging to life in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. What troubled him was the knowledge that no one could have foreseen the events that had unfolded. The sinking of the Titanic had been a freak accident, occurring in calm waters with not a shred of ice in sight. Had the ship hit an iceberg, there would have been more warning, more time to react. But this had been a rogue wave, a sudden and unexpected monster that had risen up out of nowhere to claim the lives of so many. He sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. It was a tragedy that would live on in infamy, a dark stain on the history of the White Star Line and the world. But it was also a tragedy that had brought out the best in humanity, the kindness, compassion, and bravery of those who had faced certain deaths with courage and dignity. He thought of the survivors, huddled together on the deck of the lifeboat, sharing their meager rations and comforting one another. He thought of the rescuers, risking their own lives to save the survivors. And he thought of the dead, their souls forever, at rest beneath the waves. The sea's frigid embrace swallowed the bow first, dragging the Titanic down into the abyss above. The stern lurched skyward at a cruel angle, its deck slick with freezing spray and haunted by desperate cries. In the eerie half-light, the survivors in the water felt the ship's final exhalation as she slipped beneath the waves, carving a column of blackness that yawned to receive her. In Lifeboat No. 3, Lady Evelyn Harcourt wrapped her cloak tighter, eyes fixed on the spot where the great ship had been. Around her stunned souls huddled in silence, broken only by soft weeping. But even amid relief at their escape, a palpable dread lingered in understanding that the vessel they had fled was far from at peace. Below the surface, in the watery corridors of her broken hull, something stirred. The steel corridors, flooded and twisted, became a tomb for both flesh and spirit. From the submerged grand staircase rose the faint strains of a harp, playing portentously in an empty ballroom. The glass domes shattered under pressure, yet the notes persisted, shimmering through the chill like stranded breath. On the starboard side of the bow, the ghostly woman in rose linen drifted between the supports, her bare feet hovering above the sand. Her fez was closer now, features sharpened by suffering, lips cracked, hair as dark as oil floating in the currents, eyes glowing with a sorrow too vast for mortal grief. She raised her hand and traced its path along the painted rail, whispering a litany of names, those claimed by the sea, those still clinging to memory. Above, the Carpathia's decks were a jumble of blankets, lanterns, and wounded bodies. Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, blighted by exhaustion, stared through binoculars at the still waters. Through the lens, they saw shapes gliding beneath the surface. Phantom figures in Edwardian dress, drifting past the overturned lifeboats, hands outstretched toward the living. When they lowered the glasses, nothing remained but darkness. On the horizon, the dawn bled softly into pink and gold, incongruous against the tragedy it illuminated. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the survivors began to weep, to murmur prayers, to offer hurried thanks. Even as they spoke of hope and rescue, the mist on the water thickened, and a mournful wind carried a faint, echoing chorus of "We are waiting." Below the surface, the Titanic's whistle sounded one last time, a cavernous bellow that rattled the lifeboats and stilled hearts. It was not the steam-powered call of engineers, but the voice of the ship herself, lamenting her fate, mourning her children, and warning the living that some wounds run deeper than steel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Captain Edward John Smith, master of the standing at the precipice of infamy. He adjusted his captain's hat and surveyed the wreckage strewn across the sea like a macabre monument to hubris. Beside him, reeling from the impact, stood first Officer William McMaster Murdoch, his face ashen, eyes wide with shock. The icy grip of the North Atlantic had claimed many souls that night, but none more vital to the saga of the Titanic than these two men. For Smith, this was the final voyage of his long career at sea. He had commanded the largest vessels of the White Star Line, shuttled passengers between Europe and the New World, and navigated the treacherous seas of the Grand Banks of Newfoundland with skill and But now, as the chilling pre-dawn light revealed the full extent of the damage, years of experience could not dispel the nightmare before him. The Titanic was a graveyard, her grandeur extinguished, her lights forever quenched. A profound sadness settled upon him, heavier than any lifeboat's chains. In the face of such devastation, all his accolades, all his triumphs seemed trivial, even shameful. Murdoch, younger and less seasoned, nevertheless possessed the sharp instincts and iron will that had made him the first to propose lowering the lifeboats. His gaze, when it was not fixed on the crushing realization that their best efforts might not be enough, searched the churning waters for survivors. As a rescue mission, the captain and the first mate fell into an uneasy silence. They were bound by duty, by loyalty to the company, and by the grim task of ensuring order in the face of chaos. The weight of the lives entrusted to them, both those lost and those clinging to the wreckage, pressed down like an icy shroud. Their ordeal had only just begun. On the deck above, the cries of the survivors mingled with the haunting melody of a violin. A lone musician, perhaps in a final act of defiance, or perhaps to assuage his own terror, played on. Amidst the carnage, a father cradled his child close, whispering reassurances that he knew were lies. A mother clutched a lifeboat, her fingers white-knuckled, eyes fixed on the horizon, as if willing the sun to rise faster, hoping for a miracle that would never come. Nearby, a young couple embraced, their love an island of warmth in the vast ocean of despair. Some prayed, their voices trembling, their pleas lost in the wind. Others stood in stunned silence, their faces masks of misery and disbelief. In the distance, the pale glow of dawn yielded to the gray promise of day, indifferent to the tragedy it illuminated. The Carpathia, like a phantom of hope, approached ever so slowly, her lights cutting through the darkness, her crew a beacon of salvation. As the survivors stirred, a collective gasp rippled through the huddled figures. Was it real or imagined? Was salvation truly at hand? Or was this, too, another cruel trick of the unforgiving sea? The captain steered Carpathia away from the Titanic, But some things could not be escaped, not even by day or by distance. Some things lingered in the wake of the Titan, like barnacles on its hull, sucking at the soul. The survivors huddled on the decks, shivering under blankets that were not their own. None dared speak of what they had seen, though all had witnessed it. The ocean stretched infinite around them, an empty cradle still warm with the ghost of the sunrise. When night fell, the wind shifted, and the ghosts came out to play. Those that had perished on the Titanic were not at peace. Now, they clung to the living, pulled by some force back to the place of their abandonment. First, there were only whispers on the wind, then the rustle of silk skirts and the creak of boots on the steel deck. A lantern's glow cast dancing shadows that twisted into grotesque figures and then vanished when approached. The seat itself seemed alive with memory, a living tapestry woven with the grief of 1,000 stories, each thread tugging at the heartstrings of the living. Some screamed out in terror, hiding their faces behind their hands, while others prayed, begging for deliverance from the horrors of the deep. But Captain Roosteron and his matey knew that the only deliverance was forward, ever forward, away from this watery grave. But how do you escape memory? How do you outrun a ghost? Even the comforting rhythm of the waves could not drown out the specters that haunted these waters. Every crest and trough echoed with the cries of those trapped beneath, pulling the living down into the abyss with them. Fear was a palpable presence on the deck of the captain's gig. Was it the cold seeping into their bones? Or was something else lurking in the darkness, just beyond their vision? Fear tightened its icy grip around their hearts, whispering insidious doubts into the howling wind. Whispers that questioned whether escape was truly possible, whether the past could be outrun. And if not, what then? What happens when the darkness closes in and the abyss pulls you under? In the face of this encroaching dread, the survivors found themselves frozen in place, their limbs heavy as if anchored to the deck. Their eyes wide and unblinking, staring into the inky blackness that surrounded them. They were trapped on a raft of memories, adrift in a sea of fear, unable to move forward, unable to go back. But among the paralyzed figures, one remained steadfast. Father Thomas Biles, who had refused a spot on a lifeboat, choosing instead to stay behind and minister to the dying souls below, now stood tall, his white robes billowing in the wind. He raised his crucifix, high, its silver surface glinting in the faint light of the lanterns, and began to speak. His voice was strong, resonant, cutting through the terror like a knife through fog, reciting ancient prayers for the departed. With each word, the shadows seemed to recoil, the darkness itself thinning at the edge of the lantern light. It was as if the very spirits of the Titanic paused, listening to the solemn words spoken above them. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The rhythmic crashing of the waves into the hull of the captain's gig was the only sound that dared break the silence. It was a moment pregnant with anticipation, suspended between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. And then, miraculously, the lanterns on the Titanic flickered to life. They were faint, bioluminescent bulbs strung along the ship's corridors, casting an eerie green glow that illuminated the windows where no one should remain. In those windows, faces appeared, the pale visages of the lost pressed against the glass, mouths open in eternal, silent screams. They reached toward the living, fingers trailing on the thresholds of reality, yearning for release. Some of the survivors screamed, shrinking away from the ghostly tableau. Others wept, their tears freezing on their cheeks. But Father Biles stood firm, his gaze fixed on the spectral display before him. His face was etched with sorrow, yet resolute, his lips moving in silent prayer. As he continued his litany, the ghostly figures began to stir, their moans growing louder, their pleas more desperate. The sight was both terrifying and heartbreaking. These were the souls of the departed, forever trapped between worlds, unable to find peace. Yet in their torment, there was also a strange beauty, a haunting spectacle that transcended the horror of their demise. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable loss. Slowly, as if in response to the prayers echoing across the water, the ghostly figures began to fade. The windows that had blazed with spectral light grew dark. Once more, the silent screams receding into the abyss. One by one, the faces at the glass retreated, their fingers curled and uncurled, as if searching for purchase on the thin air. And then they were gone, leaving behind only the cold, hard stare of the empty panes. The spectral tableau dissolved, leaving behind an eerie silence. Father Biles lowered his crucifix, his shoulders slumping with the weight of the world. Tears wet his long, white beard. His eyes, though filled with sadness, held a new resolve. Beside him, the survivors stirred, blinking away the remnants of their terror. Slowly, cautiously, they began to move, their limbs stiff from the paralysis of fear. The captain helped a woman to her feet, his rough hands surprisingly gentle. One by one, they rose, shaking off the numbness that had gripped them. And then from the depths of the darkness, the apparition of the woman in rose floated by him, drifting on the cold wind. Her form was translucent, shimmering like heat haze on the horizon. Her eyes, hollow and distant, stared straight ahead, seeing only what lay beneath the waves. She did not acknowledge the living, not even the father who had come to save her, and those like her. She moved like a whisper, a sigh of the wind, fading into the vastness of the night. She drifted closer, the faintest hint of a smile gracing her spectral lips. Her voice, when she spoke, was the lapping of waves against the hull of a ship, soft and rhythmic, yet somehow clear and resonant. "Save them," she whispered, the words carried on the sea spray. "Save us." And then she was gone, melting into the shadows as quickly as she had appeared. But her words echoed in the minds of the survivors, resonating deep within their souls. What did she mean? Were they not already saved, rescued from the icy grip of the ocean and the fate of the Titanic? Or was there more to be done, a greater purpose that bound them to this watery grave? Father Biles pondered the question, his gaze fixed on the spot where the apparition had vanished. He felt a profound sadness, a deep empathy for the lost souls that haunted these waters. But he also sensed a calling, a duty to carry out the unfinished mission that had brought him here. He turned to the survivors, their faces pale and drawn in the lantern light, their eyes haunted by the phantoms they had witnessed. "We must move forward," he said, his voice strong and steady. "We cannot stay here. Dwelling in the past will only bring more suffering." The survivors nodded, understanding the wisdom in his words. They had seen enough of the past, enough of the ghosts that lingered here. It was time to move forward, to put the horrors of the Titanic behind them. Yet as they turned to leave, a sense of unease settled over them. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of brine and decay. The waves crashed against the hull, echoing with a mournful sound. The ghosts of the Titanic may have faded from sight, but their presence lingered, a shadow cast over the survivors and the hope for a new beginning. Father Biles led the way, his steps firm and resolute. He walked with the unwavering faith, knowing that, whatever lay ahead, he was not alone. The survivors followed, their faces grim, their steps heavy. They knew that the ordeal was far from over, that the specters of the Titanic would continue to haunt their dreams. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, the survivors on the captain's gig watched in stunned silence as the Titanic flickered back to life. It was as if the ship itself was rising from the depths, momentarily, just to taunt them with its ghostly glow. The spectral lights danced across the ravaged hulk, illuminating the gaping wounds where the ocean had torn into the mighty vessel. The sight was both mesmerizing and horrifying, like witnessing the return of a malevolent spirit, stirring in its watery grave. It was a cruel trick of fate, a final act of malice by the unforgiving sea, to show the survivors the ghost of the ship they had fled, only to vanish, again, leaving them in the cold embrace of reality. The Titanic may have returned from its watery grave for a brief moment, but the haunting specter of its existence lingered in the minds of the survivors. It served as a constant reminder of the fragility of life, the capricious nature of fate, and the enduring power of the sea. The story of the Titanic is one of tragedy, of human error, and the unforgiven nature of the sea. But as the years have passed, tales of a different sort have begun to emerge from the wreckage. Many who've visited the site, whether in person or in spirit, have come away with more than just a story. They've carried with them the haunting melody of the Titanic, a tune that seems to emanate from the depths themselves. It was April 15th, 1911. At dawn's full glow, the Titanic's lights winked out one by one, leaving the ship plunged into an abyss of darkness. The ghostly faces of the crew and passengers, frozen in their final moments of life, are said to have faded into the mist, along with the image in the locket. The whispered chorus of the hymn "Nearer, My God, to Thee" dissolved into the crashing waves, leaving behind only the haunting echo of the violin. And then silence. An eerie stillness descended upon the wreckage, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow the very essence of the doomed ship. Only the relentless lapping of the waves against the hull broke the quiet, a mournful sound that seemed to whisper the ship's tragic tale to those who listened. The somber notes of the violin resonated through the water, weaving a melancholic tune that spoke of loss and longing. It was a sound that tugged at the heartstrings, a melody that seemed to rise from the depths of despair itself. As the music swelled, it carried with it the weight of unshed tears, the silent screams of those lost, and the profound sadness that enveloped the sinking ship. The melody seemed to flow from some unseen source, an ethereal performance by a phantom orchestra. It was a haunting serenade, a requiem for the lost souls aboard the Titanic. In the years that followed, the melody became a fixture at the site. Explorers and historians who returned to the Titanic's resting place reported hearing faint strains of the violin, as if the ship's musicians were still playing on, oblivious to the watery grave that lay just beyond the portholes. It was as though the very timbers of the Titanic resonated with the mournful notes, keeping the memory of that fateful night alive. But the music wasn't the only eerie phenomenon to be found on the Titanic's resting place. Some have even seen apparitions drifting through the wreckage, the lingering forms of the crew and passengers forever trapped within the ship's icy embrace. Through the murky depths, they glimpsed the spectral forms of men, women, and children, their faces drawn and haggard, their eyes vacant and staring. These ghostly figures seem to wander aimlessly through the corridors of the sunken ship, forever reliving their final moments aboard the Titanic. The ship's name is now etched into maritime lore, not just for its tragic end, but also for the restless spirits said to dwell within it. It serves as a somber reminder that the depths of the ocean hold secrets best left undisturbed, and that some journeys, once embarked upon, can never truly reach a destination. In the heart of the Atlantic, the Titanic lies in wait, an eternal monument to human ambition and the unforgiving power of the sea. Her rusted hulk, a silent testament to the dreams and aspirations that once filled her decks. And as the currents shift and the sea creatures play around her decaying form, the echoes of laughter, music, and hope seem to drift from the depths. A haunting reminder of the lives that were lost and the dreams that were shattered on that fateful night. Beneath the waves, the Titanic sleeps, her story a legend, her spirit a mystery, her soul forever bound to the depths. She is a tomb beneath the waves, a graveyard of hopes and aspirations, a solemn reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of the sea. As we explore the depths of the ocean, searching for answers and understanding, we must remember the lessons of the past. For in the depths lie not only wonders, but also tragedies, and the echoes of those tragedies can resonate through time, reminding us of the fragility of life and the importance of remembrance. In the case of the Titanic, her story continues to captivate us, not just because of the tragedy, but also because of the enduring mystery. What lies beneath the waves is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of the sea. And so we return to the story not just of a ship that sank, but of the dreams that were carried on her decks, the laughter that echoed through her halls, and the love that bound her passengers and crew together. For in the depths of the ocean, the Titanic lives on, a symbol of both tragedy and hope, a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of the human spirit. The supernatural has been an interest of humans for centuries, from ghost stories to haunted houses. We can't seem to get enough of the paranormal. But what happens when the paranormal finds us? That's what happened to the passengers and crew of the Titanic. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. The paranormal activities surrounding the wreck of the Titanic. So buckle up, guys, and let's get into it. It has been over 100 years since the sinking of the Titanic, yet many still wonder about the fate of those lost at sea. Now, most of us have heard the story of the Titanic by now. On April 14, 1911, the supposedly unsinkable ship struck an iceberg and sank, taking over 1,500 passengers and crew to their deaths. But what some may not know are the eerie tales surrounding the discovery of the wreckage and the strange events that continue to unfold even today. In this video, we will explore the bizarre occurrences that have left many questioning if there is more to the Titanic story than meets the eye. As we delve into these chilling accounts, keep in mind that while they remain unexplained, they offer a glimpse into the unknown. I invite you to join me on this journey through the depths of mystery and intrigue surrounding the Titanic. Decades slipped away, but Titanic's shadow never faded. In 1985, Robert Ballard's submersible first illuminated her broken grand staircase. Now entombed in silt and sea growth, the cameras captured skeletal banisters draped in coral, and at that moment, every viewer felt a shiver not from the cold depths, but from the sense that something unseen lingered in the frame. Subsequent dives brought more unsettling reports. Oceanographer Dr. Mariela Cortez swore she heard a child's laughter echoing through her sub-S intercom as it passed beneath the bridge. When she reviewed the recording, only static remained, yet her logbook entry trembled with certainty. "I will never forget that laugh. It was alive." Expedition teams returned with artifacts that seemed to bear the imprint of ghostly presence. A rusted pocket watch retrieved from the mailroom stopped at precisely 11:58 p.m., its cracked face frozen in the final minutes before impact. A silver serving tray, engraved with a white star-lined crest, lay atop coal dust as if left in haste. When the artifact was lifted, the silt beneath shaped itself into what looked like footprints, human and bare, leading back into the darkness of the boiler room. Remote-operated vehicles, ROV, sometimes halted inexplicably as they ventured down the grand staircase, cameras blurring for split seconds, as if the lens itself Engineers reported power surges and distorted telemetry phenomena attributed to deep-sea conditions, yet always concentrated around the ship's ballroom, where the specter in the rose gown was rumored to dance on moonlit nights. But these eerie incidents are not confined to the vessel itself. In 2011, as sonar technology revealed new details of the seabed around Titanic, an anomaly emerged. What appeared to be human figures lay strewn across the ocean floor, almost as if they were trying to flee from the ship. Some sightings resemble people diving into the water, while others appear to be crawling away from the doomed vessel. These haunting images raise questions about whether they could be the long-lost souls seeking to escape their watery graves, or simply a trick of the sonar. As the years pass, more mysteries seem to converge upon the Titanic, creating a chilling narrative that extends far beyond the ship's demise. Could there be remnants of paranormal activity surrounding the Titanic? Is it possible that the emotional toll of the disaster has left an imprint on the very essence of the ocean floor? Or are these occurrences merely products of our fascination with the unknown? The ongoing exploration of the Titanic continues to captivate our imagination, blurring the line between reality and the paranormal. While science may offer explanations for some of these phenomena, others remain shrouded in mystery. The Titanic serves as a reminder of the profound impact this tragedy had not only on those who perished, but also on the human psyche. The idea of restless spirits forever bound to the ocean floor keeps us captivated. Despite the passage of time, the Titanic continues to captivate our attention, blurring the boundaries between the tangible and the ethereal. Whether viewed through the lens of historical tragedy or paranormal intrigue, the Titanic remains an enduring enigma, leaving us to ponder the depths of human resilience and the mysteries that lie beneath the surface. With each passing year, the Titanic's allure grows stronger, drawing us into a world where the veil between the living and the dead seems paper thin. In the face of such an overwhelming catastrophe, it is natural for us to seek meaning and closure. Perhaps in the realm of the paranormal, we find solace in the belief that the restless souls of the Titanic find peace in the depths of the ocean. While rational minds may dismiss these sightings as mere figments of the imagination, there is something undeniably haunting about the prospect of human forms forever imprinted on the seabed. The notion that these figures represent those who perished aboard the Titanic adds a layer of tragedy to an already devastating event. It is as if their final moments of terror are etched into the ocean floor, serving as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life. As technology advances, we continue to explore the depths of the ocean, eager to uncover the secrets that lie within. The Titanic, with its ghostly apparitions and enigmatic artifacts, beckons us to delve deeper into its haunting embrace. Each expedition brings new revelations, blurring the line between myth and reality. Is it possible that the emotional toll of the disaster has left an imprint on the very fabric of the ocean floor? Could the restless spirits of the Titanic be reaching out to us from beyond the grave? These questions may never be fully answered, leaving us to navigate the murky waters of the unknown. While skepticism is a healthy approach when dealing with the paranormal, there is something inexplicably compelling about the Titanic's ghostly tale. They serve as a reminder that the human experience is deeply entwined with the mysteries of the universe. As we continue to explore the depths of the ocean, we must also confront the depths of our own curiosity and wonder. The Titanic's haunting legacy lives on, weaving a tapestry of tragedy, intrigue, and the paranormal. As we delve into the depths of its mysteries, we are reminded of the enduring power of the human spirit and the allure of the unknown. What do you think about the haunting apparition spotted on the Titanic? Is it evidence of paranormal activity or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspective on this mysterious phenomenon. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and share it with your friends and family. Your support means everything to me, and I look forward to bringing you more captivating content in the future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the depths of mystery and intrigue. And until next time, stay curious, stay open-minded, and always keep an eye out for the unexpected. From the freezing waters of the Atlantic to the sun-drenched shores of California, the story of the ill-fated Titanic continues to captivate and haunt people around the world. In this journey through time and tragedy, we'll explore the eerie echoes of the Titanic that persist more than a century after the sinking of the so-called unsinkable ship. Join me as we delve into the chilling tales, passed down through generations, uncover the secrets hidden in plain sight, and witness the enduring legacy of the Titanic that continues to resonate in our collective memory. On land, survivors' descendants recounted family heirlooms that carried the chill of the deep. An old woman in Ireland told how her grandmother had kept a baptismal gown that once fit an infant as stilly as a summer night. The white fabric was stiff with salt, smelling strongly of brine and heavy with ice. Each night at midnight, it was said to drip with seawater. Another heirloom was a monocle that belonged to a man who survived the sinking. It turned up years later in an antiques auction in the Midwest and hung on a velvet cushion. Amidst curiosities like the fossilized tooth of a saber-toothed tiger or the shrunken human head that nobody bid on, when the auctioneer described the monocle, potential buyers leaned closer. He told how the gentleman whose estate it came from had always refused to part with the lens, claiming it would fog up when he looked through it. They say what you see in old pictures is what you get. But the morning after the sale, the new owner got a much different view. They claimed the air in his bedroom grew frigid, the air thick with salt spray. And when he held the brass tube to his eye, he saw not his reflection, but the haggard face of a stranger, fleetingly etched into the glass before vanishing like smoke. The newcomer sold the monocle immediately, returning it to the ocean mist. No one knows where it is now. Every time someone hears the story, they wonder if it could be true. Could the monocle really reveal the face of a ghost? In every retelling, a single name echoed: Isabella Munro, the woman in rose. Researchers found no passenger manifest listing her name, only a clandestine notebook recovered from a waterlogged trunk in a wrecked stateroom. It detailed the journey of Amelia Monroe, a stowaway midwife, who perished trying to save a child in steerage. Could Amelia and Isabella be one and the same, or was the name itself another layer of the ship's enduring enigma? But as the years went on, whispers persisted, not only of the lost ship and its passengers, but of a ghostly woman in robes. People began to speak of Isabella Monroe, a mysterious figure who seemed to materialize from the ship's own mists. Some said she appeared in old photographs taken on board, her ethereal form a fleeting glimpse in a sea of smiling faces. Others claimed to see her in the windows of the wreck, a haunting silhouette framed against the inky blackness of the deep. But perhaps the most compelling evidence came from those who felt her presence most keenly, the descendants of the Titanic survivors. They spoke of family heirlooms imbued with the ship's own chill, like the baptismal gown said to drip seawater at midnight, or a monocle that revealed a phantom face to its beholder. These tales, passed down through generations, wove a tapestry of memory and loss, connecting the past and present in ways both tangible and spectral. As researchers delved deeper into the mystery, they uncovered a hidden chapter in the ship's log, a clandestine notebook detailing the journey of Amelia Monroe, a stowaway midwife who perished trying to save a child in steerage. Was she the elusive Isabella? The question hangs unanswered, echoing the Titanic's own lament. As the decades rolled on, the allure of the Titanic's secrets continued to beckon explorers of the deep and seekers of the supernatural alike. Paranormal investigators gathered aboard replica ships, attempting to pierce the veil between worlds. Through seances, they called out to the Titanic's lost souls, hoping for a sign, a message, any tangible link to the ship's haunting past. Some spoke of spirit boards trembling as the messages came through, spelling out urgent pleas or cryptic warnings in charcoal letters. Others described unseen hands, tipping tables laden with candles, sending flickering shadows dancing across the room before plunging everything into darkness. Even the most skeptical observers could unhelp but shiver as the icy Atlantic spray painted over their skin, mirroring the frigid grip of fate that had seized the original passengers so many years ago. Amongst these stories, one name shone like a beacon: Isabella Monroe, the woman in rose. Had she been a passenger, a crew member, or simply an ethereal being bound to the ship's watery grave? With no solid answers to be found, speculation ran rampant. Some believed Isabella was the key to unraveling the Titanic's final secrets, while others saw her as nothing more than a figment of overactive imaginations. Yet, despite the doubts, the search for Isabella Monroe and the truth behind the Titanic's haunting continued. After all, what is a life less ordinary than one lived between two worlds? But the Titanic remained stubbornly silent, her secrets locked away in the cold embrace of the deep. Still, the allure of the unknown proved too strong to resist. Divers, historians, and ghost hunters alike continued to descend into the chilly depths, driven by an insatiable curiosity and the faint hope of finding closure. Year after year, they braved the unforgiving currents and bone-chilling temperatures, descending into the abyss where sunlight dared not reach. What they found down there defied logic and reason. From personal belongings to architectural remnants, each discovery wove a new thread in the tapestry of the Titanic's demise. But it was the intangible, the echoes of despair, and the lingering scent of pipe smoke that truly captivated the human spirit. These spectral whispers seemed to rise from the depths themselves, carrying with them the weight of lives abruptly ended and dreams swallowed by the sea. Among the most haunting of these discoveries were the personal effects of the passengers, and crew items that once held the promise of comfort or joy, but now lay scattered on the ocean floor, frozen in time. A child's shoe, a tarnished pocket watch, a woman's silk scarf. Each object whispered a silent story of lives cut tragically short. They served as poignant reminders of the human cost of the disaster, a stark contrast to the ship's grand design and the dreams it once embodied. But it wasn't just the material evidence that captured the imagination. Explorers also encountered architectural remnants of the ship, frozen in the act of sinking. Corridors lined with chairs and tables as if waiting for their next meal. Staterooms filled with the spectral glow of moonlight filtering through shattered windows. These haunting images resonated deeply within the human psyche, forcing a confrontation with the fragility of life and the relentless march of time. For in the silent embrace of the deep, the passage of years meant little. The Titanic stood as a timeless monument to human ambition and fallibility, forever suspended in the icy depths. Yet even in the heart of this watery grave, the echoes of life persevered. Explorers reported hearing sounds that defied explanation, from the creak of a rocking chair to the murmur of voices drifting through the corridors. These auditory apparitions seemed to bridge the chasm between past and present, connecting the living to the lost souls of the Titanic. They whispered tales of an era long gone, offering glimpses into the daily lives of the passengers and crew. As they went about their routines aboard the seemingly invincible ship, such encounters left explorers both mesmerized and unsettled, questioning the boundaries of the possible and the nature of existence itself. For in the realm of the Titanic, where life and death intertwined in the icy depths, the line between the seen and the unseen blurred. And as the expeditions continued into the 21st century, the allure of the Titanic's secrets only grew stronger. Modern technology allowed explorers to venture further and delve deeper, unveiling new aspects of the ship's tragic tale. Each discovery brought fresh questions and theories, keeping the public captivated and ensuring that the Titanic's legend continued to burn brightly in the collective imagination. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Titanic's legacy is the realization that within the cold embrace of the ocean depths lies a final resting place for more than 1,500 souls. These men, women, and children, from all walks of life, found their final moments entwined in a shared fate, a fate that was both sudden and merciless. As explorers descend into the icy depths, they carry with them the names and stories of these lost individuals, each representing not just a statistic, but a life brimming with hopes, dreams, and loved ones left behind. It's a sobering reminder of the fragility of human existence and the unpredictable nature of fate. But amidst the tragedy, there's a glimmer of solace. The Titanic, though lost to the depths, has become a site of remembrance, a place where the living pay tribute to the dead. Wreaths and flowers are carefully lowered into the water, carried by currents to rest upon the seabed near the ship's grave. These gestures, born of love and respect, transform the depths into a virtual sea of remembrance, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming loss. Now, here's a question for you. What do you think? Have you ever visited the Titanic Museum or seen the movie? Do you believe in ghosts? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button for more amazing stories. Thanks for watching. Long after the steel ribs of the Titanic settled into eternal darkness, the world above continued its restless spin, yet, for those tethered to her story, time felt suspended. At the Titanic Museum in Belfast, curators report lights flickering inexplicably in the replica grand staircase. Visitors speak of a silk gown brushing against their shoulders. Though no one else stands near. In Halifax, Nova Scotia, where many of the recovered bodies were laid to rest, cemetery claim headstones shift overnight, forming new patterns, sometimes spelling names not recorded in any death registry. On fog-laden mornings, witnesses say they see a solitary figure in rows drifting between the rows, pausing by each grave before vanishing into the mist. Meanwhile, deep-sea expeditions still chart the wreck's collapse into two main sections. In the Stearns Ballroom, researchers have dropped motion-activated lights, only to have them snuffed out in mere seconds. One submersible's lights blinked out completely as it hovered above the third-class quarters. When power returned, cameras recorded a single footprint pressed into fine silt, too human to be geological, too crisp to be centuries old. The question echoes through maritime lore: will Titanic's spirits ever find rest? Folklorists argue that the souls cling to the metal and memories, bound by the violence of their end. Psychics aboard a weathered salvage vessel lit candles, enchanted laments beneath starlit skies, seeking to release the trapped. Their recordings picked up a chorus of childlike giggles, followed by a collective sigh that resonated through the hull, almost human, almost grateful. Yet others lament that the relentless disturbance only stirs the unrest. Artifacts raised from the depths sometimes bear fresh gouges, as if clawed by desperate hands. Recovery teams report tools misplacing themselves, instruments slipping from gloved hands into the abyss, as though the ship itself rejects intrusion. On anniversaries of the sinking, April 14th to 15th memorial services hold a brief silence at 11:58 p.m., the instant the iceberg struck. At that precise moment each year, cell phones freeze, radios sputter, static, and numerous witnesses in port cities report goosebumps and chills that have no meteorological explanation. Videographers capturing the ceremony sometimes catch, in the periphery, a drifting glow of lantern light, tracing the outline of a sweeping gown. In classrooms and lecture halls, scholars debate whether technology can ever truly penetrate the veil between worlds. Submersibles record temperature anomalies. Electromagnetic readings spike around specific cabins, but skeptics dismiss these as natural phenomena. Meanwhile, the faithful cling to a single conviction that those who perished in Titanic's final hours left behind not just bodies, but burdens of unresolved promises, of mothers clutching newborns, of lovers parted by towering waves, of a ship proud in its hubris undone by nature's ancient will. Perhaps Titanic's spirits roam until every story is told, every name spoken aloud, every tear acknowledged. Or perhaps they linger because no mortal act of remembrance can fully repay the debt of a single life lost. Until that reckoning comes, the ocean holds its secrets tight, and every ripple, every flicker in the deep, serves as a reminder that some journeys end, not with finality, but with an unending vigil beneath the waves. Night falls once more upon the sea, and the memory of Titanic's doomed voyage drifts like a slow fog over every recounted tale. On the Carpathia's deck, now decades in the past. Philosophers and poets have sought to capture the ship's essence in words, yet none can fathom the full weight of her sorrow. Still, in hushed corners of maritime lodges and candlelit studies, elders share a last remembrance, the benediction of those lost souls. In Southampton, a small chapel stands near the old docks, its stained glass windows depicting saints and sailors. Entwined, pilgrims leave flickering candles at its threshold each April, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, the lantern's flame dances wildly without cause. They say it's the breath of those who perished, eager to offer farewell prayers. Far below, in the cold dark, the bow and stern lie fractured but joined by the ship's broken hearts. Time and tide have sculpted them into ghostly ruins, illuminated by submersible lamps that trace the old promenade deck's contours. Here, explorers pause at silent stations, moments when every machine is shut down, and the only sound is the distant groan of metal. Some feel a presence then, a gentle warmth that seeps through their suits, a reassurance that the restless have at last found solace. On board the latest research vessel, Captain Elena Ramirez consulted the expedition log, her eyes traveling over decades of anomalies, footsteps in silt phantom music, whispered names. As the submersible prepared to dive, she placed a single white rose on the deck, a symbol of hope and remembrance. For every soul, she murmured, that we lost. The dive commenced. Lights pierced the water, illuminating the grand staircases, chandelier ruins. The team held their breath as the cameras panned upward to the broken dome. For an endless moment, the only movement was drifting silt until, beyond the railing, a figure appeared, the woman in rose, but no longer gaunt. Her gown shimmered, threads of rose gold weaving through the deep blue water. Her arms were lifted, palms open, as though blessing the living. She spoke, though no sound reached the sub-speakers, and yet her message was felt in every heart. Remember us kindly. Our vigil is over. Let the world know we lived, we loved, and we were not alone. Then she turned, drifting back into the vast dark, her form dissolving into light. The researchers watched, tears glimmering in their visors. As the submersible's instruments recorded a rise in temperature around the bow, warmth that lingered long after the vision faded. When they surfaced, Captain Ramirez retrieved the white rosette was undamaged, though Colden laid it at a memorial service held at sunrise. There, surrounded by survivors, descendants, and curious onlookers, she recited the names of every passenger and crew member, pausing as a gentle breeze carried the petals into the air. In that final moment, bells chiming from the chapel at Southampton, children's laughter echoing in distant classrooms, church organs playing softly in Halifax, the world breathed in unison. Titanic's story had come full circle, from proud ambition to tragic loss, from haunting lament to peaceful closure. Though her steel may rust and her tales may fade into folklore, the Titanic's true voyage endures in every whispered name, every tear shed for the lost, and every heart that dares to remember. Beneath the waves, the restless found release. Above them, humanity learned humility. And in the space between, a timeless bridge stands, connecting past and present, life and memory, sea and soul.